Hi, this is Levi. Before we get into this episode, I wanted to take a quick minute to introduce a few of the other podcasts in the WCF Podcast Network. Tom and Naomi are exploring how we interact in our ecclesial relationships in From the Platform. It's a very in-depth series that is incredibly helpful for understanding and developing compassion and better listening practices. That's From the Platform. Sam Taylor from Cleveland, Ohio, produces weekly devotionals in Pause to Consider. Think Mr. Rogers meets Fireside Chat. I love Sam's humble style and think every episode is fantastic. You can find both of those wherever you get your podcasts or on our website at wcfoundation.org. Now, here's the show. Hi, this is Levi. Before we get into the interview with Dalton and Lauren talking about how canceling their wedding due to COVID has kind of really affected their faith in I think really some beautiful ways, as you'll see in the interview, I just wanted to lay out the timeline. We took this interview on Monday, April 27th, and Dalton and Lauren were married on Saturday, May 2nd, which is very beautiful. It was a beautiful wedding to kind of stream together with them on Facebook. So now we'll be posting this later. So it is a little bit of a look back. So when we're talking, you'll understand more of the reference to the time. I also wanted to just take a moment to give a special shout out to any other members of the Christadelphian body who had their weddings canceled, but just specifically James and Rachel Gurney of the Boston Ecclesia, and Annie and Elliot Brennan from Newcastle in Australia. She used to be Annie Elton. Anyways, that's another few couples, and I'm sure there are others who I just don't know. These are just the ones in my social circle who also had to have their gatherings canceled. Through this whole idea, we remember that there is a beautiful wedding that we are looking forward to in the Kingdom Age. And as you'll hear Lauren and Dalton explain, all of our activities here are only in accordance with God's will, and it is right. It is very right for us to say, God willing. So here's the interview with Dalton and Lauren. Welcome to A Little Faith. I'm Levi. I'm very excited to be here on the phone with my friends Dalton and Lauren. Hi, Dalton. Hi, Lauren.
Hello.
Hi.
How you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're glad to be here in our homes, obviously.
Yeah. This is an episode on A Little Faith, kind of in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you guys have been impacted in a really specific way in that you've had to cancel your wedding, which is heartbreaking. And we want to kind of talk more about that, but before we get there, for people who don't know you, what's your guys' kind of story? So I guess take turns, like where are you? I guess tell the story of your life in a few minutes. Let's start with Lauren.
So I'm 24. I grew up in small town East Texas and in Huntington Beach, Southern California. I currently work as a social media manager for a plant nursery, not babies. A lot of people get confused when I first say that.
Yeah.
And I'm up in Northern California now.
Mm-hmm. So I'm 26 years old. I was actually born in the East Coast in Richmond, Virginia, but I only lived there for 3 years. My family moved to the West Coast when I was 3, to the foothills of Sacramento, in a town called El Dorado Hills, and that's where I've been ever since. I am a financial planner by profession. I work for a small local independent financial planning firm.
Yeah, and I do know you guys. We've kind of grown up, a few years apart, and in CYC and stuff, and the CYC activities in California, Bible school and all that. So just again for the audience, we do have an existing relationship. I had an invitation to the wedding, which I was very excited about. So how did you guys meet?
Well, just through the connection of Christadelphians. We're not really sure at what point we didn't really officially meet. We just kind of suddenly became aware of each other.
Right.
But I do remember, we grew up in CYC together, so that was where most of our interactions happened, and then Idlewild. I'm 2 years older than her, but we're pretty close in age.
Right. Lauren, do you have a time you remember exactly, like a moment where you thought of Dalton as a dating option?
Yeah, I have this specific memory. I was 14. I think it was my very first fall conference. I was shooting basketball hoops on the court wherever the conference was, and Dalton, for some reason, started talking to me, which I thought was super weird. Like, why is this boy talking to me? And ever since then, I just, noticed him. Like, when we were at a conference together, I would, be aware of where he was. So I always say that's when I first became aware of him. He was actually friends with my older sister. And I think for a while he didn't really know I existed. So that's when I first remember really knowing of him and being aware of him, as I say, and
right.
Considering him an option, I guess.
Dalton, do you have a memory like that?
Actually, it's funny enough, it's the same memory.
Oh, really?
I very distinctly remember. We kind of have a long history of interested in each other, but not doing anything about it. Right. So I very much remember, and it was very much purposeful that I went up to her and started talking to her while she was shooting hoops. I had a little crush on her. Already, yeah. And I pretty much kind of did for years. So it's very interesting because we both remember these memories, even though they're very small, because we really didn't interact that much. We didn't really talk very much. I wouldn't even really say we were friends really for years until we were older teenagers, but I think we both liked each other. Right. So we remember all those little memories, which is actually kind of a cool story.
So then Lauren, in my mind, the time that Lauren eventually went to school in San Francisco, right? Which is 2 hours from Sacramento. Lauren, when you did that, was Dalton on your mind then, or how was the timeline? When did you guys start dating, I guess, is what I'm asking.
So I went up to San Francisco to start college in 2014. It was a pretty random decision on my part. I had never really been to Northern California. I'd gone to the Sacramento conference, but that was it. I had no idea how far, Sacramento was from San Francisco. Right. So he wasn't really on my mind until, the spring conference before I graduated. Everyone from graduated from high school. Everyone from Northern California that was there came up and made sure they introduced themselves. I knew most of them already, but they were all talking to me, and I remember Dalton telling me how he was going to be gone in Virginia the whole summer, and I definitely was sad about that because I wasn't going to see him at Idlewild or YCC. So he was sort of on my mind with me moving up there, but it wasn't at all a part of my decision to go to school up there.
And then when did you guys start dating?
We started dating officially in December of 2015.
Right. You guys dated for a while. You got engaged sometime in 18 or 19?
October 2019, so 3 3/4 years.
Right. And then I guess that's just 6 months ago. What's the engagement story?
So Lauren kind of chided me about getting engaged, proposing, giving her a ring for a couple of years. And, it's lighthearted, but I think the most important thing was she didn't want to know anything. She didn't want to know what the ring was. She didn't want to know that I was doing it. So that was the biggest thing. I had to make it a total surprise. We were visiting my grandparents in Virginia. Okay. Me and Lauren, and my parents were also going we'd been planning for a few months in October 2019, last year. And preceding that, I'd started to think, okay, I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling ready to do this. And so I sort of hatched a plan to do it there. I bought the ring from a local place in San Francisco and had it shipped to my aunt and uncle in Richmond, who picked it up stealthily and stealthily delivered it to my dad, who stealthily delivered it to me. And I wanted to keep it all a big secret, which was actually very difficult. There was a few some deception along the way on my part to keep that a secret. And I just wanted something simple and just the two of us. I knew that was something she wanted too. So it was a rainy day, which is Lauren's favorite weather, and I had planned for us to go to the old house where I lived for the first 3 years of my life.
Right.
And there's a nice city park nearby. It's with like a waterfall and a gazebo. So I planned, okay, we'll go under the gazebo and then I'll propose. And so we did that. I said, hey, let me take a picture of you. I'm going to take a picture of both of us. And so I set up my phone to, like when you like do a timer, like so that it could take a picture of both of us. But actually I put it on video record instead of that. And then,
nice.
And then I proposed to her, and then we had it on video, which she didn't realize the whole time. So that was actually pretty cool. And she didn't know. It was a total surprise, right?
It was definitely a surprise.
That's cool. Yeah,
it was
that's
funny.
Cool.
The conversation literally before that was me telling him how he needs to like go to this trunk show that was happening for a jeweler I like, and he was like, "Oh, maybe I'll go."
Yeah.
And then he proposed.
Yeah, that's very idyllic. That's really cool that you had a video of it and everything. So then you started wedding planning, right? So Lauren, what were your first kind of steps in planning the wedding?
The first thing to do was to decide where we were going to have it. Since we live up here in Northern California, we weren't sure, should we have it here? All my family and most everyone that was going to be invited is in more of like the LA area.
Right.
So ultimately we decided to have it in Southern California. So finding the place to have it was like the most stressful, I would say. Just because we couldn't really like go places to visit them. So the place we ended up booking, we'd actually like never been there before, and it was in Santa Barbara, and I've never even been to Santa Barbara before.
Yeah,
me neither.
That's funny. I mean, It's a beautiful. If anyone wouldn't know who's listening, it is a beautiful beach town. It's like the northernmost beach town kind of the LA area, and it's gorgeous. What were you feeling as far as your relationship with kind of God and each other when you first made that, like you're first making those plans? Because I remember for Jess and I, it was like, it's definitely a high energy time, planning the wedding.
Yeah, I definitely feel like through our whole relationship, God has been guiding us.
Right.
But like before we even started talking, like we weren't even friends yet, and I just like had this feeling like right when I moved up to San Francisco, like I'm going to date Dalton. I'm going to marry Dalton. And it just was like kind of a weird thing, but I just felt like God's hand through our whole relationship. Everything's just kind of worked out for us.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like he's been there with us, guiding us the whole time.
And so you still felt that connection when you started making plans.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was disturbed at that point. What were the first couple months of wedding planning like for you, Dalton?
Yeah, so it was a very exciting time. It was like we didn't rush into it. We dated for almost 4 years, so
right.
it felt like, okay, we're really, like, this has been a long time coming. It was very exciting, like, to finally be there. And it felt very exciting because, like I mentioned earlier, at that point, we've now been interested in each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
Now. So it was like just kind of one of those things that's like amazing. Like, I can't believe that this is actually happening like this. I can't believe it's actually working out like this.
Right.
And that we're actually getting married, because, that's a lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't scary. And I think it wasn't scary at all because we had been dating for so long, and neither of us are like super young. So
right.
There was really no scary part of it. It was really just very exciting.
Yeah, it was exciting. Just again as an observer, it was something that many people were waiting for. When did you first hear about the virus or like COVID-19? Do you remember like it kind of hitting your radars at all, or?
Yeah, I think for Lauren and I, it was very different times, because I actually have somewhat of a historical interest in pandemics, and so I've studied them a little bit. When I read some like article when it just was breaking, like that there was something coming out of China, this new virus. This was very early January. It would have been one of the like first few days of January. I'm gonna like January 3rd or 4th, and it immediately was just a little bit on my radar. So I just kind of figured, okay, this will just come and go. But in the back of my mind, I was kind of thinking, what if it doesn't? It might not. And then also personally, just a slight bit of, I wonder how this could impact our wedding plans. But optimistically, I figured it wouldn't impact them.
Right. What about you, Lauren? When did it hit your awareness?
I wasn't really aware until sort of the beginning of March. I work in marketing, so I started getting a lot of and I'm customer facing a lot of times, so I started getting a lot of questions from our customers about it with certain events we were having, and that's what kind of made it more real for me.
So basically, in my timeline, it's kind of like the March 16th. March 16th was the Monday that I first stayed home. So that 16th to the 21st of March is really kind of when it really hit, as far as, hitting California and the shelter-in-place order. What was that week like? So
yeah, I mean, things really transpired quickly.
Right.
It went from, we had a wedding shower on March 1st, and we had our engagement photos the next day, and it was very low on our radar.
Right.
Maybe not really inexistent on our radar that this would impact our wedding plans, to going, 2 weeks later or 2 or 3 weeks later being a foregone conclusion that it was probably going to be canceled. So yeah, I think March 16th was the first day that, the Friday before that, my boss texted us and said, hey, I'm going to be, he said he was going to be working from home and that we're welcome to if we want. But I figured, no, I'm just going to keep going into the office. But then that Monday, 3 days later, he texted us and said, hey, things are pretty bad. I have connections to the state, and they're privately saying that things are even worse than people realize. And he said, so you need to work from home.
Wow.
And I went into the office that day and got everything that I needed. And so I was just by myself that day, and it was very depressing. It was actually I remember that Monday, it was very gloomy. Like that very first day, it impacted me pretty bad. But something I've always said about humans is that I really do think that we're very adaptable to situations. And so really what I needed to do is I just needed to adapt to the situation.
Right.
Because by the next day, it had kind of set in, okay, well, this is the new normal. I'm going to be working from home. I'm not going to be leaving much. And that's just the situation.
Right.
I just needed to kind of mentally adjust to this new way of life.
What about you, Lauren? What was that like that week?
So I think it was the Friday before, so Friday the 13th, I think, was the first day my boss had mentioned, you could work remotely. So I just got what I needed to and started working remotely that day. And I previously worked remotely, so it wasn't so abnormal to me.
Right.
But it was definitely weird. And for my job, I do a lot of content creation, lots of videos and photos, and that stopped. And that's my favorite part of the job. It's the most fun. So that was getting used to that was kind of weird, not being able to do that sort of thing. But I'm definitely a homebody, so being home all the time or coming over and seeing Dalton is not something that would usually get me down.
Right.
So it's definitely just, I feel surreal is the best word.
Right.
It was just crazy because you could just feel everything in society starting to shut down. And for us personally, the biggest thing I think has been our wedding being impacted.
Right.
Which is not a great thing. It's been pretty disappointing at times and something we've had to kind of get through.
When was the wedding part of that conversation? I'm saying you're staying home Monday, the 16th, Tuesday, the 17th, in that kind of first week when you must have started talking about it, right?
I don't know when we first talked about it. I'm going to guess it was the beginning of the second week of March or something. We first said, this might impact our wedding. And we just said, okay, well, it might, but we don't need to make a decision right now. And there's still time for it to not impact it. So for now, we'll just kind of proceed. But I think we both subconsciously stopped planning for our wedding at that point because we were like,
interesting.
We're not going to stop it, but we just we stopped actually making plans.
All the big things had been planned, all of the big vendors, where it's going to be, food, DJ, photographer, videographer, all that.
Yeah.
All the big stuff. And it was kind of crazy because the week before, kind of that March 16th, I had sent out all the wedding invitations.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was just like, as soon as it kind of, that Monday hit, I was just like, oh my goodness, like, I just sent out our wedding invitations and the world is like closing down. And that was definitely something on my mind. Like, I felt really bad that I knew people were feeling uncomfortable, like getting these wedding invitations and like either having to RSVP no, which of course no one is going to want to do.
Right.
Or saying like, we would love to be there if we can. So we knew with that too, there was kind of like, we couldn't just keep going and waiting it out. So we kind of waited it out as long as we felt we could before realizing, okay, nothing's changing. There's no way we're going to have this. And then we sent out an email to everyone letting them know that we were going to have to cancel the wedding.
Let's talk about praying. So you were praying for it to happen.
Yeah.
So when did you start doing that?
I probably like became an active part of our prayer. The very beginning of March was when we started like regularly praying that like this would not impact our wedding specifically. And so we prayed, but then, you know, kind of mid-March or so, I think we slowly stopped praying for that, to be honest, as it seemed less and less likely. It's kind of a weird thing to be in a situation where you're praying for something and yet all the signs look like that is not going to happen.
Yeah.
What you're praying for. And then at some point you switch from praying that, you know, that our wedding is not canceled to praying that we can handle this in the best way, the cancellation.
Yeah. Well, what's that feel like? I mean, deciding to cancel.
It really was an impossible decision. Like, here we have this great thing, like we're getting married, we're so excited, and then the pandemic hits and we have to decide, like, we were really forced to decide to cancel, but all the decisions surrounding that have just felt really difficult, and no matter what we were going to do, it wasn't going to be what we wanted. So praying for God's guidance in all this and helping us make these decisions has been a big part of our prayers. Because it's not like there's a right or wrong, like we just didn't know what to do. So that's been comforting to pray about that and know that God is there for us and he'll help us get through whatever it is we're going through.
And what I'd add is that, yeah, it wasn't like there wasn't really much of a decision to be made. It was more of just how long do we prolong the inevitable? So, and the amazing thing is how fast things transpired, because like I mentioned, in early March, it was basically like virtually no thought that this would impact our wedding, to by mid-March being somewhat of a foregone conclusion that we'd probably have to cancel, to late March, you know, actually, okay, well, we're canceling. And that was less than a month that all took place. But, you know, things just got, like, by mid-March, we both were saying, okay, we both need to mentally be prepared that we're probably going to have to do something.
So you were talking about it.
But but I said, you know, we probably, the latest we could wait is like mid-April before we have to make a decision. So I said, for now, we can just wait it out. And then from mid to late March, things just got worse and worse and worse in the United States. And, you know, laws started happening, stay-at-home orders. And then by the last week of March, it was like, okay, we're going to have to cancel our wedding. Now we just need to figure out what the steps we need to do to, you know, contact vendors, contact the attendees, and really just figure out what we're gonna plan for now. You know, it wasn't really much of a decision. We knew we had to do it, and we knew that with all this stuff going on, and there's people that are getting sick themselves, and that they are worried about, you know, losing their job and things like that.
Right.
That it's really not that much on most people's radar, our wedding. And so we knew that we kind of needed to, we knew that like for the good of everyone, we really needed to just kind of cancel it, and just okay, it's like it's canceled. Just like don't stress about it, and just kind of like move on from that, because everybody had so many things going in their brains about all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right to say that through all of this, there's been some of our friends or ecclesial members who are suffering in like way much greater and like possibly more longer lasting ways, in our ecclesias and in our communities. But it still was heartbreaking. I mean, as an attendee, as an invitee to your wedding, to get that cancellation. I'm actually gonna pull up. I found the email. I thought it would be interesting to read, and you guys put this beautiful picture. Well, we regret to inform you, we have canceled our wedding on May 2nd. This will not come as a surprise to you, but it's still disappointing to have to officially cancel. We waited as long as we felt reasonable, but the COVID-19 pandemic is not slowing down yet, and we feel there's basically no chance that a large gathering will be at all prudent or even an option in a month from now. As what we're going to do now, we don't know. We're still processing all of this, but once we know what we're going to do, we will be sure to let you know. If you would, please let us know that you've gotten this message, and stay safe, Dalton and Lauren. You guys have this beautiful picture of the two of you looking kind of away from the camera. It was a downer to get that, though. Just, again, such a heartbreak for us. Do you remember the moment you guys sat down and said, okay, we're canceling? Like,
I think I do. I think I do when I said, okay, we're canceling. So we need to cancel the venue. We need to contact the photographer, the videographer, the food person, the lights person, everything. Yeah. And then we need to let everybody know. I think I do remember that moment when it was like, okay, the inevitable, like we need to bow to the inevitable.
Yes. Do you remember that, Lauren?
Yeah, we sat down at Dalton's computer. We were trying to gather everyone's emails. Luckily, we have the address book with most everyone in there, and just writing like one of the most disappointing emails ever. It was just, I don't know, it was just surreal. Like, I couldn't believe just like the month prior, a month ago, I had been sending out all of the wedding invitations, and now we're having to cancel it. And you brought up the picture, and that was from one of our engagement photos, and it just felt right because it wasn't the happiest of all pictures, but it was, I don't know, somewhat hopeful or something.
Yeah, we purposely put that picture in there to kind of give some hope, and for those on the podcast who can't see it was a picture of me and Lauren holding each other, and we're looking away from the camera, and we're looking off into the mountains. And it felt like the picture encapsulated the mood, which was like, there's this trial we have this trial ahead, which would have been visualized in these mountains.
Yeah,
we've got each other, and we're going to get through it together.
Yeah, it was. Again, I can't imagine the feeling of having to cancel such a major event for you guys. Were you ever angry? You must have been angry, frustrated. I mean, beyond disappointed, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely think I felt anger at points, and just sadness, and just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like,
right.
One of the things that during planning was, our planning was disrupted for a month or so. My brother died about a month after we got engaged, and so we had decided, and I just didn't want to postpone something.
Her brother died less than a month after we got engaged, which obviously just it's crazy how sometimes life works like that. October 2019 was like, I'd say our happiest month of our lives, and then November 2019, the next month, was the saddest month of our lives, back to back. And so obviously we just kind of like, okay, we can't, like, wedding plans, just at that point when he died, we hadn't picked a date or anything, so we still had, it was still much in the process, but we got to put it on the sides. And we just obviously, particularly Lauren, just can't mentally handle planning that, just has to go through this this grieving process. So, but after a few weeks of that, Lauren, I think she started to get a sort of a resolve to her that I'm not going to let this terrible thing stop me from doing something that is good. And she told me, and she repeated this phrase, I'm not going to let a bad thing, I don't want to let a bad thing postpone our wedding. Before Kieran died, we had talked about a time frame of like April, May. And so then we started after, when she felt pretty resolved and felt like she could start planning again, then we said, okay, well, let's try for the same time frame as what we said before.
Mm-hmm.
So after going through that and not postponing our wedding for the worst thing that has ever happened to me, it was just crazy. Like, my brother died, we didn't postpone our wedding. And now there's this pandemic that's forcing us to cancel it. Like, that was just, and I basically said that like all the time. I just couldn't believe that it was happening, but at the same time I still had that same sort of resolve that Dalton was talking about. Like, I didn't want to postpone our wedding for a bad thing, because our wedding is a happy thing, it's a good thing, we've been looking forward to it, we've been together for over 4 years now. It just doesn't feel right to postpone our marriage and this new chapter in our lives together because of anything bad happening.
It did feel very defeating when we had to cancel our wedding, because it was like Lauren was able to get through the worst event of her life and still have this mentality of, we're going to do things as we planned, we're going to have a happy wedding, and we're going to look forward to it in the same time frame as what we imagined. And now this pandemic virus is going to stop us from having that happen. It definitely was a very defeating feeling going through that.
What was the feeling in your prayers and your relationship, and I mean with God, I'm saying, like,
I think just asking God to be with me. I found that when these bad things are kind of happening, I can't always focus that great in my prayers. So just, I think Dalton told this to me like the week after my brother died, just ask God to be with you, ask him to help you. So that's something that I've been repeating in my prayers daily for 5 months now. And that's about as much as I can focus on a lot of the times. And I know he is there with me, so I don't think, like, I definitely haven't lost that, and that's what's helped me get through these bad times.
Yeah, it's a rough one. I think you guys have a beautiful attitude, dealing with, because this is a loss, it's a different kind of loss, obviously, than Kieran was, but that's what you are grieving, a real loss. But, so May 2nd is coming up. What are you guys doing?
So after we canceled our wedding on, I think it was April 1st or 2nd when we sent out the email, we kind of sat on it for a week or so, and with really no plan. Like, I don't know, basically we don't know. And we started mulling options, and I think it was hard. I think particularly Lauren had to mentally adjust to something different. And so it took some time, but I think, but about a week ago, Lauren said, you know what, I think I can finally feel good about something, a plan, another plan. And so we started formulating that about a week ago, and we're still formulating it. So
okay.
This is obviously very last minute, but we are planning on, in spirit of the not canceling, or not postponing our wedding for a bad event, we are planning on still doing it on May 2nd. And it'll just be, private, me and Lauren. And then if we can, at all possible, live stream that to others to be able to be part of it. That is our plan, but it is a very last minute production, and we are still working together the pieces. So,
yeah.
But that's where we stand right now with it.
Well, talk more about that. What did you just said something and it hit me. Then I just started thinking about live stream productions. You're just saying, I guess, ready to feel something, like ready to feel positive.
Yeah, so it was definitely hard for me to imagine a different kind of wedding day.
Right.
Like we planned the wedding. I had it in my mind, how everything was going to go. I envisioned it, all of these different memories we were going to make with our friends and family. We're going to have all the photos from that. Photos are like a huge deal to me, so that was really hard for me to think about not having all of those family photos, because I feel like that's where you get your best family photos, is at your wedding.
Right.
So I had to process all of that, and we kind of came up with a plan B, and then because all of these closures everywhere, that got canceled. And then I just didn't really know. I didn't know what I wanted. It felt like whatever thing I thought of or we talked about, it was just not what we wanted. It was an impossible decision to make, because no matter what, it wasn't what I planned for. It wasn't what we talked about having. And then after talking to some of my friends, they had kind of mentioned things like, you can still make it special. There's still things you can do, and talking to Dalton about, like, this is May 2nd will be our wedding day, and it will be truly about us. It's going to be basically just us. And then at a later point, we'll be able to celebrate with everyone, and then we'll be able to focus on celebrating with our friends and family and everyone that's supported us through all of this.
Yeah. You guys are going to have the best 1-year anniversary party ever.
Yeah. It's looking like it might be another year until we can have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I heard this concept a different place, but I love you guys. You can't see it now, but you have an origin story. You have a clear time and a story and a thing and an experience that's going to bond you together, forever. Like it's not this big, glorious, beautiful wedding, that you had imagined, but it was going to be this experience, in this incredibly hard year you've had, so in a way that is a blessing, doesn't feel like it, but
yeah, it's, really for us, just making sure we have the attitude of just life's what you make it. And like, just whatever happens, just accept that and roll with it as best you can. And going back to what I said about how that first day when I worked from home in mid-March, and I was really down, and I kind of had to process it. And I think I came to the feeling of, okay, well, this is the new normal, and that's fine. That's fine. And I've actually been enjoying it, for the most part, because I've tried to maintain an attitude of being thankful for what I have rather than disappointed for what I don't have. And I do actually think that gratitude plays a big role in that part, because, I mean, bottom line is, like, me and Lauren we still have so much to be thankful for. We may not have the wedding day that we planned, but that's just one day. And throughout all this pandemic, it would feel very insensitive and self-centered of us to be too, woe is me about canceling the wedding, when other people are, getting sick, their family members are dying, people are losing their jobs, the financial security is going away. And, as of right now, we feel very, very blessed that we both have not had any financial impact, and we are still able to work from home safely without being in harm's way. We both have, places to live. We have each other, and we're not sick. And so we feel very blessed, actually. And I actually, in many ways, I almost feel more blessed now than before all this happened. Sometimes it gets me down, oh man, that I'm not able to have we're not able to have our wedding as we thought. But for the most part, I feel very grateful still, because I do think of all the things that we have, and there's really not any room to to be too upset at what's happened when we think of things in that way.
And through this whole time, we've just tried to remember that God is in control of everything. And I don't know if you noticed this, Levi, but on the invitation at the bottom, we put God willing. Obviously, our big wedding was not God willing, but so far we're planning to still be able to get married, and that seems to be a part of his plan so far. A lot of places you can't get marriage licenses, we've heard, but we were able to get one, so it's actually legally possible for us to get married. And it'll just be our story, however it happens. And
it will be a beautiful story, because it's going to end up with you guys married. I think it's what God wants, and I know it'll be a blessing to many people. Man, thank you guys so much. I selfishly very much wanted to have this conversation, like off the record. So this has been fantastic.
And thank you for inviting us, because it does help to vocalize how we feel. And I think something that I've learned about God through this is that ultimately his plans are not always our plans. And Lauren mentioned that we put the little but very important phrase of God willing on our invitation, and obviously that didn't come to fruition as we thought, and so it's taught me that if we can't outplan God, and we have to accept that sometimes we're not going to be given everything that we want, and that's okay. And in the end, we have to be grateful for what we have, and we have to realize that there is a plan for things. There's a reason for things, and by maintaining that right attitude, it helps us to get through this. And we can look back on our lives, both of us, and think of things that we wanted to happen in our lives, that we prayed to God that would happen, and they didn't happen. And a lot of those things we can look back with the introspection and realize that we were better off them not happening. We were better off the way life happened, and we just have to be have the faith to realize that must be why this is happening.
Have you learned anything different about God, Lauren? In the last, I guess, yes, you have. The answer is yes, you have in the last year, but I guess anything specific you wanted to share?
I think it's made me really think about my priorities in life, and it's made me realize how reliant I am on God, and how I can't get through this on my own, and I need God, and I need people in the ecclesia, and I need Dalton and my family and friends. So I don't know if I feel like I've learned something totally new, but it's definitely feels like newsflash,
it's reinforced what you thought.
Yeah, it's reinforced things I thought and things I knew, but maybe things I wasn't always actively thinking about that I should have been thinking about more.
Yeah, relying on the Lord, truly, really truly, is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, guys. This has been a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate you guys sharing with everyone. I think, like you're saying, this has been it's a disruption for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I think you have had a real loss, like you're saying, to compare it to financial, losing your job or something, or kind of life being technically more stressful, it's not a fair comparison, but it is still it's a loss. You guys have had a loss, and but like you're saying, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna build memories in a different way, if this is not the end. So love you guys.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and it just sometimes when people are going through difficult times, it just takes just a little bit of just a small thing to make them feel good. I know you texted me, a few weeks ago saying, hey, we're praying for you guys about your wedding. Really sorry this is happening, or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's nice that Levi was thinking about us. And and there's been lots of moments where people have just reached out to us in little or big ways, and it definitely helps to have to know that you have people that you can lean on that are there for us. And it actually it's interesting that with this coronavirus, I was thinking, has there ever been a time in human history that has so united us against one thing? Like in wars, there's always one side or the other, and
Right.
and with this, we all know what's going on because of how connected we are to the world. So everyone in the world pretty much knows about this thing. And while there might be people that blame, one side, like blame certain people more than other people, there's still a united feeling that everybody wants this to not be happening. And
Right.
we're united in that regard. And I don't know if there's ever been such a feeling, and whether it's you're losing your job or getting your wedding canceled or getting sick, we're all dealing with this.
Right.
So I think we can all strengthen each other because we know that we're all dealing with this in one sense or the other.